In the first question, it says expand and simplify 3 times 2y minus 5 plus 7 times y plus 2. So what you will do is you'll expand the bracket first, multiply 3 with 2y and 3 with negative 5, then 7 with y and 7 with positive 2. So that's going to be 3 times 2y is 6y, 3 times negative 5 is negative 15, 7 times y is 7y, and 7 times 2 is 14. So that's going to be 6y minus 15 plus 7y plus 14. Now we combine the like terms. 6y and 7y are like terms, and negative 15 and 14 are like terms. So that's going to give us 13y minus 1. Because 6y plus 7y is 13y, and negative 15 plus 14 is minus 1. So that's your answer. In the next question says, factorize fully 6x squared plus 15x. Now we're going to see what's common between 6x squared and 15x. So if we split 6x squared into its factors, we know that's going to be 3 times 2 times x and times x. Whereas for 15x, we have 5 times 3 times x. So now if we notice, we can see that we have x in both 6x squared and 15x, and we have a 3 that's common. So that means we can take 3x common outside, and inside the bracket, we'll have 2x plus 5, because those are the factors that are left behind after we've taken 3x common. Part C says make G the subject of the formula where f equals to 3g plus 11. So we have f equals to 3g plus 11. So since we have to make g the subject, I'm going to first take 11 to the other side. So that's going to make it f minus 11, because when we move a term from one side to the other, its sign changes. So positive becomes negative. So that's f minus 11 equals to 3g. Now we need to get rid of the 3 with g. So to do that, we will divide both sides by 3. So that's going to be f minus 11 over 3 equals to g, and that is your answer. Question 2 says Karen is organizing a party for a charity. She spends £100 on food, £180 on a hall, and £80 on a DJ. Karen sells 54 tickets for the party, and each ticket costs £7.50. Work out the percentage profit Karen makes for the charity. So let's first calculate how much she spent. So cost is going to be sum of all of these expenditures. So 100 plus 120 plus 80, which equals to 300 pounds. Now, next what we'll do is we'll find the revenue that she's made after selling the tickets. So her revenue is going to be 54 times 7.5, because she sold 54 tickets and each ticket cost 7.5 pounds. So that's going to equal 405 pounds. Now we have to find the percentage profit. So first, let's find the profit. Profit is going to be revenue minus cost. So that's going to be 405 minus 300, and that's 105 pounds. So now to find percentage profit, we will divide the profit by our cost, which is 300, and times that by 100 because you find the percentage. So that's going to give us 35%. Question 3 says Andrew invests £4,500 in a savings account for 2 years. The account pays compound interest at a rate of 3.4% per year. Calculate how much Andrew has in his savings account at the end of 2 years. So he's invested 4,500 for 2 years. His rate is 3.4% per year. We need to calculate how much Andrew has in his savings at the end of 2 years. We will use the formula for compound interest, which is basically principal amount times 1 plus r to the power of t. This is your principal amount, the 4,500. R is your rate and t is your time. So that's going to be 4,500 times 1 plus 3.4 over 100. Always write your percentage as a fraction. So 3.4% is going to be 3.4 over 100 and to the power of 2. So that's going to be 4,500 times 1.034 to the power of 2. When you plug this in the calculator, what you should get is 4,811.202 pounds. Question 4 says solve 5x minus 14 equals to 52 minus x. So 5x minus 14 equals to 52 minus x. What we're going to do is we're going to collect the like terms on each side. I will bring x over here and take negative 14 over here. So that becomes 5x plus x, because when you move negative x to the other side, it becomes positive. And negative 14 will also be positive on the right-hand side. So that gives us 6x equals to 66. And x is going to be 66 divided by 6, which equals to 11. Question 5 says Chris, Debbie, and Errol share some money in the ratio 3:4:2. Debbie gets 120 pounds. Chris then gives some of his share to Debbie and some of his share to Errol. The money that Chris, Debbie, and Errol each have is now in the ratio 2:5:3. How much money did Chris give to Errol? We're going to find the total amount that has been shared among the 3 people. So we know Debbie's amount. Debbie is 120 pounds. This is our ratio. So let's begin with this ratio first. So for Debbie, that's going to be 4, because that's her part in the ratio. Over the total of the ratio, that's 3 plus 4 plus 2 times total amount. So Debbie's amount was 120. So 120 equals to 4 over 9 times the total amount. So 120 times 9 over 4. And that will give us 270 pounds. That is the total amount. Now, we know that Chris gives some of his share to Debbie and some of his share to Errol. Total amount is going to remain the same throughout, but what's going to change is the share of Chris, Debbie, and Errol, because Chris is dividing his share among Debbie and Errol. That causes the ratio to change as well, which is 2:5:3. So let's use the 270 amount to find this. So we know that 270 was the total amount. So let's try to find the amount Chris had. Chris is going to be 3 over 9 times 270. Right now we're using the first ratio, not the second one yet, because we're trying to find the initial amount for Chris. So that's going to be 90 pounds for Chris. Now from this 90 pounds, we are giving away some to Debbie and some to Errol. 90 minus x minus y is the new amount for Chris. Chris's new amount. This was his old amount. So that means I'm going to assume that x is the share that he gave to Debbie. And y is the share that gave to Errol. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to change the amount for Debbie and Errol as well. For Debbie, we know it was 120. Okay, so Debbie's new amount will be 120 plus X, because X is the amount that Chris gave to Debbie, and previously she had 120. So 120 plus X is Debbie's new amount. To find Errol's new amount, we need to find his old amount first. So we know that Chris had 90 and Debbie had 120. So Errol old amount would be 270 minus 120 minus 90. We subtract Debbie's and Chris's amount from the total amount, and that gives us 60 pounds. So this was Errol's old amount. So to find Errol's new amount, that's going to be 60 plus Y, because Y was the amount that Chris gave to Errol. Now they're saying how much money did Chris give to Errol. So to find the amount that Chris gave to Errol, we will use Errol's amount, which is 60 plus Y, and that will be equal to the quantity from this ratio. So from this ratio, Errol's part is 3. So 3 over sum of 2 plus 5 plus 3 times the total amount, which is 270. Like I said previously, the total amount is not changing. It's still going to be 270. So 60 plus Y equals to 3 over 10 times 270. So that is going to be 60 plus Y equals to 81. Y equals to 81 minus 60, and that is 21. So this is the final answer. This is the amount of money that Chris gave to Errol. So if we like sum it up, first you will find the total amount using Debbie's share. Once you found the total amount using Debbie's share, you will find Chris's amount, then you will find Errol's amount. So these are the old amounts that we're talking about using the first ratio, which is 3:4:2. So once you've found those amounts, then we come to the next ratio once Chris has given some quantity to Debbie and some to Errol. So X amount of money was given to Debbie, that's what I assumed, and Y amount of money was given to Errol. So that makes the new amount for Debbie and Errol different, and even for Chris, because Chris now has 90 minus X minus Y, Debbie has 120 plus X, and Errol has 60 plus Y. So since we have to find out how much Chris gave to Errol, so what we're going to do is we're going to put Errol's amount equal to his part from the new ratio and times that by the total amount, which remains the same throughout the changes. So 60 plus Y equals to 3 over 10 times 270. And then we solve that to find the value of Y, which is 21 pounds. And that is what Chris gave to Errol. Question 6 is the bearing of port B from port A is 147. Work out the bearing of port A from port B. So if you draw the bearings, this is A and this is B. The bearing of port B from port A, which is this, is given as 147. They're asking us to find the bearing of port A from port B. So this is the bearing that they're asking us to find. Remember, bearing is always measured from the north. That's why we started from over here, because this is the north of B and went towards the line where A is situated, because this is the, and when it says from A, so that means you will measure the bearing from that point for the other point. That's why we are measuring the bearing of A from B. Now, if you remember the rules for parallel lines, when two lines are parallel and they have a transversal passing through them, alternate angles are equal. So if this is, let's say, X, this would also be X. Same logic will be applied over here because these two lines are parallel, which means if this is 147, this will also be 147. So to find the bearing, we will add 147 to 180 because this is a half circle. So 147 plus 180, which will give us 327 degrees as the bearing of port A from B. Question 7 says a diagram shows an empty tank in the shape of a cylinder. The cylinder has radius 15 centimeters and the height is 43 centimeters. Water flows into the tank at a rate of 0.47 liters per minute. Calculate the number of minutes it will take to completely fill the tank and give your answer correct to the nearest minute. So let's begin with finding the volume of the cylinder. Volume is going to be pi r square h. This is r, this is h. So that's going to be pi times 15 square times 43. Now this will equal to 30,394.91 centimeter cube. As you can see, the question says water flows into the tank at a rate of 0.47 liters per minute. And we have the measurements in centimeters. Our volume is in centimeter cube. So that means we need to convert the volume from centimeter cube to liters. 1 liter equals to 1000 centimeter cube. So 1 centimeter cube will be 1 over 1000 liters. So we do 30,394.91 divided by 1000, and that's going to be 30.39 liters. Now we have to calculate the number of minutes it will take to completely fill the tank, and the rate at which the tank will be filled is 0.47 liters per minute. So 0.47 equals to the volume divided by time. That is the rate. So 0.47 equals to 30.39 over the time. And to find the time, we will divide 30.39 by 0.47. And that gives us 64.67 minutes. So correct to the nearest minute, it's going to be 65 minutes. Question 8 says the number x is written correct to two significant figures. The result is 1.9. Complete the error interval for x. So if you draw a number line, we know 1.9 is the result. So there's a number before it and a number after it. A number before 1.9 is going to be 1.8, and after it is going to be 2.0. A number x is written correct to two significant figures. So we know between 1.8 and 1.9, we have 1.85, which when converted to two significant figures would be 1.9. And between 1.9 and 2.0, we have 1.95, which when converted to two significant figures would be 1.9. Why? Because in the range, x is less than the maximum number. So that means we're using the number less than 1.95, which is basically 1.94. Hence, the lower limit is going to be 1.85 and upper limit is going to be 1.94. Because 1.85 written correct to two significant figures is 1.9. And a number less than 1.95, which is 1.94, written correct to two significant figures is also going to be 1.9. So that's your answer. Question 9 says expand and simplify x plus 7 times x minus 2 times x plus 3. So over here, we're expanding three brackets. So it's always advised to begin with expanding two brackets first and then move on to the third one. So I'm going to start with expanding the first two brackets. So we have x plus 7 times x minus 2. So that's going to be x times x, then x times minus 2, then 7 times x and 7 times minus 2. So x times x is x squared, x times minus 2 is negative 2x, 7 times x is 7x, and 7 times negative 2 is negative 14. So that's going to be x squared plus 5x minus 14, because we combine the like terms, which is negative 2x and 7x, and 7x minus 2x is 5x. Now, next, what we're going to do is we're going to multiply this with the third bracket, which is x plus 3. So x squared plus 5x minus 14 times x plus 3. So in this case, we're going to multiply x with all of the terms in the first bracket, then plus 3 with all of the terms. So by that I mean x times x squared plus 5x minus 14, and then plus 3 times x squared plus 5x minus 14. So that's going to be x cubed plus 5x squared minus 14x, then plus 3x squared plus 15x minus 42. So now we combine the like terms. X cubed remains as it is. 5x squared plus 3x squared is plus 8x squared. Negative 14x plus 15x is 5x is positive x. And negative 42 comes as it is. So this is your expanded answer for these three brackets being multiplied. Question 10 says, Shakir has to complete 2 tests, can either pass or fail each test. The probability that he will pass the first test is 0.87. If he passes the first test, the probability he will pass the second test is 0.94. If he fails the first test, the probability that he will pass the second test is 0.73. So let's use this information to complete the tree diagram. If the probability of him passing is 0.87 for the first test, for failing, it's going to be 1 minus 0.87, which is going to equal to 0.13. Then it says if he passes the first test and the probability he will pass the second test is 0.94, which means over here it's going to be 0.94 because he's passing the first test and second test, which means the other one will be 1 minus 0.94, which is going to give us 0.06. Then it says if he fails the first test, the probability he will pass the second test is 0.73. So that comes over here. And this will be 1 minus 0.73, which is going to give us 0.27. Part B says work out the probability that Shakir passes at least one of the tests. So to calculate the probability that Shakir passes at least one test, what we can do is we can find the probability of him failing both tests. It is going to be 0.13 times 0.27. Basically, we go from here to here, and that's going to be 0.0351. So to find the probability of him passing at least one test, we can subtract this from 1, and that will give us 0.9643. That is the probability of him passing at least one test. An alternate method was that you could have found the probability of him passing and passing, like, going from here to here, this probability, then from here to here, because he needs to pass at least one test. That means he can fail another test, then from fail to pass. So we could have found these three probabilities separately and then added them up. But the easier way was to just find the probability of fail to fail and then subtract that from 1 to get the probability of him passing at least one test. Question 11 says the graph of 4 different types of proportionality. Match each type of proportionality in the table to the correct graph. So graph A shows that as x is increasing, y is also increasing, which is basically direct proportion. So in direct proportion, y is directly proportional to x, which is the second option. So this is A. Then in graph B, we can see that as x increases, y decreases, which means it's inverse proportion. So y is inversely proportional to x, which is this one. Then for graph C, that's y is inversely proportional to root of x. Why? Because graph D is x squared. This is a quadratic curve. So the opposite of quadratic is root x. So y is directly proportional to x squared is going to be D, and y is directly proportional to root x is going to be c. That's your answer. Question 12 says A is the point with coordinates 7, 13. B is the point with coordinates negative 3, 21. C is the point with coordinates 15, 23. M is the midpoint of AB. N is the midpoint of BC. Work out the distance between M and N. So let's start with finding the value of M and N. So midpoint of AB. So midpoint has the formula of x1 plus x2 over 2, comma y1 plus y2 over 2. So 7 minus 13 over 2 and 13 plus 21 over 2. That's going to be 4 over 2, and that's going to be 34 over 2, which basically equals to 2 and 17. Next, what we do is we find the coordinates of N, which is the midpoint of BC. So midpoint of BC. That is going to be negative 3 plus 15 over 2, 21 plus 23 over 2. That's 12 over 2 and 44 over 2, which is 6 and 22. So this is M and this is N. So we need to find the distance between M and N. So to find the distance, the formula we use is square root of y2 minus y1 whole square plus x2 minus x1 whole square. So that's going to be 22 minus 17 whole square plus 6 minus 2 whole square, which is going to be 5 square plus 4 square, and that is 25 plus 16, and that will give you square root of 41, which is 6.4, correct to 1 decimal place. Question 13 says prove algebraically that 0.0723 can be written as 241 divided by 3,330. So in these type of questions, first we need to convert this into a form where we can like solve this without having to deal with decimals. So first we need to see that if we write this 0.723 as a recurring number, that's going to be like 0.0723723. Okay. So now if I assume that this number, the 0.0723 is equal to x, I want to convert this decimal into a form where 723 comes before the decimal. So in order to do that, I need to multiply it by 1, 2, 3, 4, 10,000. So I multiplied 10,000 with x, that's going to give us 723.723, 723, and so on. Okay. So now the goal is to get rid of the digits after the decimal. And that can be done if we multiply x with 10. That's going to be 0.723, 723, and so on. So if we subtract 10x from 10,000x, 723.723 minus 0.723, as you can see, 10,000 minus 10x is 9,990x. When you subtract these two, we get rid of the digits after the decimal. So that's going to be 723. So now we do x equals to 723 divided by 9,990, which when simplified gives you the number 241 divided by 3,330. because you would just divide this by 3 because 723 is divisible by 3 and 9,990 is also divisible by 3. Question 14 says y is proportional to x square. So y is proportional to x square. So that means y equals to k times x square. When y is 3, x is 0.5. So let's substitute the values of x and y to find the value of k. So we do 3 divided by 0.25. And that's going to give us 12 for k. Then it says x is inversely proportional to w. So that means x equals to k over w. When x is 2, w is 0.2. So 2 equals to k over 0.2. So 2 times 0.2 equals to k, which is 0.4. So now if we rewrite our equations with the k value, this will be y equals to 12x squared, and this will be x equals to 0.4 over w. It says find the value of y when w is 2. So first, let's find the value of x when w is 2. So that's going to be x equals to 0.4 over 2, which equals to 0.2. And then I will substitute this value of x in this equation. So y equals to 12 times 0.2 squared. And that's going to give us 12 times 0.04. And 12 times 0.04 is 0.48. That is your final answer. Question 15 says the incomplete table and the incomplete histogram gives information about the times taken by some students to run a race. They've given us the frequency for the intervals 12 to 16, 16 to 19, 19 to 21, and 21 to 26. We don't have the frequency for 10 to 12. So if we write the values for the frequency first, because we need to find the frequency density to find the frequency for the first interval. So that's 10, 15, 9, and 7. Frequency density has the formula of frequency over class width. So if you use a 12 to 16 interval, this is 12 over here. So we know that frequency over here is 10. So if we do 10, so class width from 12 to 16 is 4. So we do 10 divided by 4, and that's going to give us 2.5. Which means this over here, this value is 2.5. So based on this, we can find the scale. It's going to be 0.5 over here, 1.0 over here, 1.5 over here, 2.0 over here. Then this will be 3, this will be 3.5, 4, 4.5, and this is going to be 5. So the frequency density for this is 2.5. Frequency density for this is 1.5, and this is 5. So we can easily find the frequency for the interval 10 to 12 because we have the frequency density, we have the class width. So frequency will be 1.5 times 2, which is 3. So that is the frequency for the interval 10 to 12. Next, it's saying use the table to complete the histogram. Now that we've completed the table with the frequency for the 10 to 12 interval, so we need to complete the histogram. So we know that the frequency for 21 to 26 is 7. So 7 divided by the class width, which is 5. And that's going to give us 1.4. That is the frequency density for this interval. So we said 1.5 was over here. So 1.4 is going to be this part. So this till 26, so that's going to come over here. This is your complete histogram. Then the next part, it says the histogram gives information about the times taken by 43 students to run a different race. Work out an estimate for the median of the times taken by 43 students to run this race. So first we need to find the middle value. So if we do 43 divided by 2, That's going to give us 21.5. To find the 21.5th value, and that is going to be the median. So first, I would like to find the frequency values for all of these intervals. So frequency density is 2 over here. So that's going to be 2 times the class interval, which is 12 over here. That is 16 over here. That is 21, 22 over here. That's 26. The intervals are the same. So 2 times 2, that's 4 over here. This is the frequency for this part. Then 2 times 4, that's going to be 8. Then for this, the frequency density is 4 and the class interval is 4. So 4 times 4, 16. And over here, we have class interval as 2. And frequency density is 6.5. So 6.5 times 2, and that's going to give us 13. The frequency for this interval is 13. And for 22 to 26, the frequency density is 0.5. So 0.5 times 4, that's going to be 2. So these are the frequencies for these class intervals. Now, median value, which is 21.5th value, that's going to come in the interval 16 to 20. Why? Because 4 plus 8 is 12. And this is going to be our first 28 values. Since 21.5th value is going to be our median value, 12 minus 21.5 is 9.5. That means we need to find the 9.5th value in this region. So we know that over here, 16 is the frequency, and the class interval was 4 because it's 16 to 20. 9.5th value in this interval gives us the median value, because from the 21.5th value, 12 value is already over here. So what we will do is we will divide 9.5 by 16 to find the frequency for one of these values. So 9.5 divided by 16 is going to be 0.59375. Since we know the class interval is 4 over here because we're going from 16 to 20, so to find the value based on the class interval, we multiply 0.59375 with 4, and that basically gives us 2.375. Now to find the median value, what you will do is you will add that to 16. 16 plus 2.375, and that's going to equal to 18.375. That is your median value. Question 16 says ABCD is a trapezium. AD is parallel to BC. Calculate the area of the triangle BCD, giving your answer correct to 1 decimal place. So first, we need to find the length of BD over here. For this, we will use the sine rule. Why? Because we have one length and opposite angle, which completes the set for the sine rule. We have the other angle and need to find the corresponding length. So that's going to be 7.9 over sine of 42 equals to BD over sine of 112. So cross multiply 7.9 times sine of 112 over sine of 42 equals to BD. And when you plug this in the calculator, what you should get is, should get 10.95 centimeters for BD. So if you remember a property for parallel lines, we know that in parallel lines, alternate angles are equal, especially when a transversal is like passing through them. So the BD acts as a transversal for the parallel lines AD and BC, which means this will also be 42. And since now we have the length of BD, which is 10.95, we can use the formula for the area of a non-right angle triangle, which is 1/2 times AB sine of angle C. In order for us to apply this formula, we need to have two lengths and the angle between them, which is exactly what we have now. We have two lengths, BD and BC, and the angle between them. So 10.95 times 15.3 times sine of 42, and that gives us 56.1 centimeters square, correct to 1 decimal place. Question 17 says, show that the equation x cubed plus 2x minus 6 equals to 0 has a solution between x equals to 1 and x equals to 2. So in these questions, what you do is you substitute the values that are given. When you put x equals to 1, that's going to be 1 cubed plus 2 times 1 minus 6, which equals to 1 plus 2 is 3, 3 minus 6 is negative 3. When you put x equals to 2, that's going to be 2 cubed plus 2 times 2 minus 6, which is 8 plus 4, that's 12, and 12 minus 6 is 6. How you can prove that the solution exists between these 2 points? If the sign is changing for the final value, as you can see, when you put x equals to 1, your value equals to negative 3. Whereas in x equals to 2, your value equals to 6. So whenever the sign changes, it shows that your solution exists between these two values. So sign change shows that the solution exists between x equals to 1 and x equals to 2. B says, show that the equation x cubed plus 2x minus 6 equals to 0 arranged to give x equals to 6 over x squared plus 2. So x cubed plus 2x minus 6 equals to 0. Let's move 6 to the other side. So that's going to be x cubed plus 2x equals to 6. Now take x common from x cubed and 2x. So that's going to give us x times x squared plus 2 equals to 6. Make x the subject. So x equals to 6 over x plus 2. That is exactly what they wanted us to prove. In part C, it says starting with x naught equals to 1.45, use the iteration formula xn plus 1 equals to 6 over xn squared plus 2 twice to find an estimate for the solution of x cubed plus 2x minus 6 equals to 0, giving your answer correct to 4 decimal places. So for the first value, I'm going to assume n equals to 0. So that's going to give us x1 equals to 6 over x naught squared plus 2, which is 6 over 1.45 squared plus 2. And that is going to give us 1.4625. After that, we put n equals to 1. So that's going to be x2 equals to 6 over x1 squared plus 2, which is going to be 6 over 1.4625 squared plus 2. And that will give us 1.4497. So that's your answer, because they asked us to find an estimate of the solution twice, and we've done that. Question 18 says E, F, G, and H are the midpoints A, B, B, C, C, D, and D, A. E, F, G, and H are the midpoints of A, B, B, C, C, D, and D, A. AH equals to A, AE equals to B, and DG equals to C. Prove using vectors that EFGH is a parallelogram. So let's connect the lines first. We have to prove that this shape is a parallelogram. So AH is A, and since H is the midpoint of AD, so this is also going to be A. AE is B, and since E is the midpoint, so EB is also going to be B. DG is given as C, and once again, since G is the midpoint, so GC is also going to be C. So we don't know what BC is. So what we can do is we can start with finding the value of BC. BC is going to be BA plus AD plus DC. So BA is going to equal to negative 2B, because we're going in the opposite direction. So minus B, AD is 2A because A plus A, and DC is C plus C, so that's 2C. So this is your vector for BC. So now we can find the vector for BF and FC, which is going to be the half for this. CF will be negative half of negative 2B plus 2A plus 2C, which is going to be B minus A minus C. So CF is B minus A minus C, and FB is going to also be B minus A minus C. Okay, so now that we have all of the vectors, let's begin with finding EF, FG, GH, and HE. So if we begin with finding EH, so EH is going to be, I'm going to start that over here. EH is going to be EA plus AH. So EA is minus B because opposite direction, and AH is A. So minus B plus A is EH. Then I'm going to find HG. So HG is going to be HD plus DG. HD is A and DG is C, so A plus C. Then I'm going to find GF. So GF is going to be GC plus CF. That is C plus B minus A minus C, which is going to be B minus A. And lastly, EF. And lastly, EF. So EF is going to be EB plus BF, which is going to be B plus negative B plus A plus C, because opposite direction again, which is going to be A plus C. So now if we compare these, EF with GH, EF, which is given as A plus C, and GH or HG is also A plus C. So since both vectors are equal, that means they are parallel. So they are parallel to each other. Let's replace this with parallel signs. So that's proven. Now for EH and GF, EH would be parallel to FG. So EH is negative B plus A, and G and FG is also negative B plus A, because we changed direction for this, because both have to be in the same direction. I found the vector in the opposite direction, but we can just change the direction. It will be the same thing. And as you can see, it's the same. So EH is also parallel to FG. And that proves that EFGH is a parallelogram. Question 19 says f of x equals to 2x plus 3 whole square and g of x is 2x minus 1. Find g of f negative 3. So let's begin with finding f of negative 3, which is going to be 2 times negative 3 plus 3 whole square, negative 6 plus 3 whole square, that is negative 3 whole square, and that is 9. Now, to find g of f of negative 3, we replace the domain of g with 9, because that's the value of f of negative 3. So g of 9 is going to be 2 times 9 minus 1, which is 18 minus 1, and that is 17. That's your answer. Then it says find the inverse of g. So g of x is 2x plus 1. Replace g of x with y. So y equals to 2x plus 1. Now, right now, y is the subject of the equation. Let's make x the subject. So it becomes y minus 1 equals to 2x. And y minus 1 over 2 equals to x. Now, last step is going to be to replace x with g inverse x and y with x. So the inverse is x minus 1 over 2. Question 20 says 14 over 3x minus 21 plus x plus 4 divided by 2x squared minus 6x minus 56 divided by 2x plus 3 should be written in the form of ax plus b over cx plus d, where a, b, c, and d are integers. So this might seem very confusing, but if we do it step by step, it's actually quite simple. Let's begin with simplifying this equation. So we have 14 over 3x minus 21 plus bracket x plus 4. Since x plus 4 is being divided by this fraction, let's take the reciprocal and replace the division by multiplication. So that's going to be 2x plus 3 over 2x squared minus 6x minus 56. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 3 common from over here. So that's going to be x minus 7 in the bracket. And over here, I'm going to take 2 common from the denominator. So that's going to be 2 times x squared minus 3x minus 28. So now I'm going to factorize this quadratic equation. So we know that to factorize a quadratic equation, we first begin with multiplying the coefficient of x squared with the constant. Since the coefficient of x squared is 1, 1 times 28 is going to be 28. Next, what we do is we find factors of 28. So factors of 28 are 7 times 4 and 2 times 14 and 28 times 1. So we have to pick that set of factors which, when added or subtracted, gives the middle term, which in our case is 3. So since we know 7 minus 4 is 3, so I'm going to replace the negative 3x with negative 7x plus 4x. And everything else comes as it is. So now that we've split the quadratic equation into 4 different terms, what we're going to do is we're going to factor by grouping. We're going to make the first 2 terms into one group and the last 2 terms into another. So between the first 2 terms, we have x common. So x times x minus 7. And between the last 2 terms, we have 4 common. So x minus 7 again in the bracket. So now, as you can see, we can further factorize it by taking x minus 7 common, because that's common between x and positive 4. So that's going to be 2 times x minus 7 times x plus 4. So now if you look over here, we can cancel out the x plus 4 and x plus 4 because they're being divided now. And that leaves us with 14 over 3 times x minus 7 plus 2x plus 3 over 2 times x minus 7. So to further simplify these fractions, we can see that we're adding fractions with unlike denominators. So what we will do is we will multiply the first fraction by 2 to make the denominators equal and the second fraction by 3. So that will give us 28 over 6 times x minus 7 plus 6x plus 9 over 6 times x minus 7. So if we add the numerators, 28 plus 9 is 37 and 6x comes as it is, and the denominator will be 6 times x minus 7. And since they're saying cx plus d, so instead of writing 6x minus 7, we can say 6x minus 42. So your A value is 6, B value is 37, C value is 6 again, and D is negative 42. That is your answer. Question 21 says, Vicky has a collection of medals. The Venn diagram gives information about the number of medals in her collection, where the universal set has all medals, A has English medals, and set B has gold medals. Vicky is going to take at random a medal from her collection. Given that the medal is gold, the probability that the medal is English is 2 over 11. Given that the medal is gold, so that's going to be this entire thing. Given that the medal is gold, the probability that the medal is English is 2 over 11. So that's going to come over here. So what we will do is 2 over 11 will equal to x over x plus 5x minus 3. This is the probability of the medal being English given that the medal is gold. So that's going to be 2 over 11 equals to x over 6x minus 3, cross multiply. So 2 times 6x minus 3 equals to 11x. 12x minus 6 equals to 11x. 12x minus 11x equals to 6, and x equals to 6. Work out the number of medals in Vicky's collection. So we're going to add them all up. 7 times 6 minus 11 plus 6, which is the middle one, plus 5 times 6 minus 3, and plus these 34 medals, because they are medals. They might not be English or gold, but they're still medals. So that's going to be 42 minus 11 plus 6 plus 30 minus 3 plus 34. And that's going to give us 98. So Vicky has 98 medals in his collection, sorry.